But the other thing I was going to say before is, say 3 scouts see you and they don't like you. It's not the end of the world. It's like you've got to persevere. Know yourself, be true to yourself, keep focusing on what you can control, keep working hard, keep applying yourself, keep contributing positively to the environment, keep doing what you're doing, seek good advice, listen. Maybe I could get better at this. Maybe that's why I didn't get. But don't be disheartened when the first guy doesn't rate you, maybe, or didn't see you, because you don't know what they're looking for. They might not even be looking for someone in your position. So don't let that knock you. Just keep on your track.
Good day, everybody. Welcome to another episode on our Lessons from the Game podcast. And today is our short form episode where myself and my co-host Ben Pegna will be deep diving into something very specific. And today's topic is going to be about how to be noticed by scouts, coaches, and professional rugby teams. But before we get stuck into that, I would just like to take some time and say thank you to every single one of you that has been supporting us since the launch of our podcast. It's been overwhelming receiving all the messages, all the feedbacks. We're just two bald-headed guys, kind of good looking, sharing our knowledge and our experience and just doing our best. But before I get carried away, let me say hi to my co-host, Ben. Brother, how you doing, my man? You're looking good, sharp as always.
Good day, everybody. We just like to say thank you for all the unbelievable support we've been receiving since the launch of our podcast. Not in our biggest dreams, we realized it would have been getting the traction that it's gotten so far, and all the message, all the support that we've been getting. It's just been unbelievable. So to help us to continue grow the show, please make sure on whichever platform you are listening or watching our podcast, whether it's on Spotify, Apple, or YouTube, please like it, subscribe to it, and make sure you are following our different pages on all different platforms. Help us to grow our show. And please, if you have the possibility to give us a 5-star rating, if you like the episode, please do so. And also comment on the different platforms, give us some feedback, and we will do our best to reply as quickly as possible. Now let's go on to the show.
Cheers, G. It's good to see you. Yeah, I'm well, mate. It's been a busy couple of days. I've been on the road selling my drink, Sumakwa. So reaching some people with that, which has been amazing. In a new spa the other day, which was great, and then a couple of other places, and then bumped into a couple of rugby people yesterday, which was some old mates as well, and some good coaches. So that was always interesting. Yeah, that's always interesting when you bump into other coaches. So that was pretty cool. Yeah.
Great. By the way, thanks. I received my my box of Sumakwa. It really tastes good, and you were spot on there. It needs to be nice and cold. It's really refreshing. Yep. But we'll deep dive into that very soon. I would like to get more into that. But Ben, before we got on this call, we decided to talk about this topic. I think it's very important because there are so many youngsters out there that are kind of lost in terms of the process. Even parents as well. They don't know which way to go, which way to navigate. I receive a lot of messages from parents. My son is 14-year-old. What should he be doing right now? Should he be doing weight training? How far? What should his time be on the Bronco? But you shared an interesting story before this podcast. Would you mind sharing about, because that is actually very insightful.
Yeah, someone reached out to me yesterday, and we were having a chat, and they just said, "Look, can you speak to my son? He's been told that he has to have a certain body composition. He's 13." The scouts are looking at his school this week, and he's been told, they're going to look at people of a certain height, a certain weight, and with a certain body composition. And he was stressing about, his body fat and things like that, And so I was able to have a chat with him and talk through what they do look for and what the process typically is, and hopefully, put him at ease with some of his concerns.
Yeah, it's tough. I think at that age, we think sometimes people are going too far. Unfortunately, you see there's a lot of pressure on youngsters these days, especially if we can call it the rugby schools. In the UK, it might be the private schools, and in South Africa, it's also the private and the semi-private. It's ridiculous to see the amount of pressure that these players go through. But I think for tonight's discussion, I think we want to chat and potentially give some insight to those younger players that want to come into those academy teams. what they need to do, the process they need to follow. Myself, I was academy coach for 2 years here in France. So what we obviously we're not looking for the complete player. We're looking for someone that has something special, something raw, that you have 3 to 4 years to work with that player, to develop them and get them ready for the professional setup. But maybe, Ben, maybe we should start at the bottom. Obviously, players want to get involved in the academy teams and then eventually in the professional side of things. But it starts at grassroots. It starts at the school level. I think let's maybe start there, because there might be some parents listening. What advice can we give to kids, say the age of 15, 16, starting out, and you can see they got the skill set, they got the build. This kid can potentially go far, but we all know a lot can go wrong in the process. What advice would you give to parents of a young avid rugby player, coming up and has that ambition to eventually be called up into an academy set up in a professional team?
Yeah, at the ages of 15 or 16, around that age, I would still want them to be doing as many different types of sports as possible. I wouldn't want them to specialize too early. So sometimes you get asked, should my son only be playing rugby? And I'm saying, hey, if he loves water polo, if he loves doing this, they're all going to be good for him becoming a better rugby player if that's what he chooses to do later on. So that's definitely one aspect of it. And they're going to also help with the second part, which is really important, that athletic ability, because if they're getting more mobile, more agile, faster, explosive, have the basic coordination that they're going to need, hand-eye coordination, all of those types of things are going to be something that scout is going to look at, because quite often they'll see somebody and they won't know what size they're going to end up, but they'll go, that guy's a good player, that girl's good. Do you think, we'd like to get them in and see how they develop over the next 2-3 years? And maybe they'll become a front row forward. Maybe they won't fill out, and maybe they'll be a back rower. Maybe they'll, and then, as I mean, there's so many elements to it, but one of the biggest things is their attitude. Are they coachable? Do they listen? Are they really good in the environment? Are they a pleasure to be around? Are they encouraging of their teammates, or are they selfish? Do they know everything? Are they really hard to communicate with? And those things come into play as well. And it's no coincidence you often see that it's those ones who are coachable, who've got a great attitude, that sort of stay in the game for a long enough time that they can keep coming back and improve year on year.
I totally agree with you. I think it's the key thing there is being coachable, but most importantly is being able to showcase that you got something special. Because if you want to play at the highest level, you need to show that you have something unique. And for some, it might be work rate, and you're a decent scrummager, or you're good on the jackal. You need to showcase what you're capable of doing. And teams are not looking for that final product; they're looking for that diamond in the rough. There's no better. How can I say, feeling for a coach when he identifies a youngster and takes him through the system 3 to 4 years and eventually plays professional rugby. That's unbelievable. I've experienced that. I've worked with youngsters, some of my props that are now playing for the professional team. I coached them for 2 years in the academy level and see them now performing. That's unbelievable just to know that I played a small part of that. But I think to give players some advice in terms of that, you got to really develop that work ethic. You need to graft. You need to be a grafter. You need to pitch up to training at school, being tuned in, listening to your coach. You don't have to agree, but you need to be focused. You need to learn with every single training session. But I think if you're looking at getting involved or getting that call up to academy team or being offered a scholarship at the university, or each country, it works different. In South Africa, for example, there is the academy, but you also have another way in through the university system, like I've experienced back in the day. So you need to make sure that you're standing out. And how can you do that? Those big school games, those big derbies, those are great games. Those are the games that coaches of professional rugby teams are watching. And each team have their scouts going out. We call it detection here in France, detecting certain players who might have the abilities, and they're following them from a young age. Don't think nobody's watching. Everybody's watching you. But the most important thing is you need to enjoy it. But when it comes to the strength and conditioning side of things, Ben, maybe you can give better input here. We often see players either starting too late, the work in the gym, or they're starting too early. My philosophy is the age of 16, you should start to learn the techniques, minimal weight, and then progressively you can increase it. I have seen players that start way too early and then they just stop growing, but I don't have the science to back that up. But I think that's important with your development going into the academy years, because you might be called in and a team might say, listen, show me your squat technique or your bench technique. And if you're already slightly advanced in terms of technique and not so much strength, I think that can help you. But what's your insights on that, Ben?
Yeah, some really good points there. I love what you said. They're not looking for a complete player. That's the last thing they're looking for. They're actually looking for somebody who is decent already, but they can see loads of room for improvement once they're in their environment. And if they're coachable and they're already decent, they're thinking, wow, they're already here. They're not near their ceiling, and we can take them from here. We can take them up 5 notches. I think that's a really important point. They're not looking for a complete player. In terms of the S&C, it's really interesting. I agree with you. I think people need to be focused on the movement patterns. Can they move? Can they squat? Are they able to move and control their body, or do they collapse and do some funny patterns? That motor control is something that's really important, because you can always just layer on after that stage once you can control your body. And that's really important ahead of like doing weights and getting in the gym too early, just so that we can tick a box and say we're strong. The body composition one for me is a really funny one, because, I don't think it's important at an early age. It's obviously you want someone that's athletic and you want someone who's disciplined and they appear to be looking after themselves, but maybe they're just getting bad advice. And I see a kid, he's got bad advice. He can't afford really good nutrition, but I'm not going to hold that against them. I'm going to think, well, when we give him better advice and he's better educated, he's going to continue to improve. So that's exciting. And the final thing as well on that one is, it's amazing how many times you see somebody who's not in their final role, So like I think Dylan Lade, so when he played schoolboy, it was always at fly half, but he didn't, Pierre Spies, he was on the wing, he moved to back row. There's different guys, so they're not looking for that complete product. They're looking for somebody who they go, he's got a good skill set, but he's athletic, but they want to learn and get better. We can work with that.
Yeah, it's so true. Now, I was locked in my matric year at school at Paul Boys. I can definitely confirm I was not a jumping lock. Yeah. I didn't have enough feather power back in the day. Enough
Would have been a strong scrum.
Yeah, strong scrum.
Bam.
But yeah, it's so true what you're saying there. But I think, where I would like to add on, I think to help the players, everybody runs their own course. I've seen players, if you take the example of Johan Smith, for example, he didn't play any provincial rugby, or he wasn't involved in the academy until the age of 20. He was working in a butcher. He was cutting meat. And I remember his story back in the day. He used to tell us he used to work in a butcher just so he can earn money, so he can go have a few beers with his mates. That's what he was doing. And then the legendary Tat Poort of the Free State, who was one of my mentors back in the day in Bloemfontein, he brought Johan Smith one day to training. I just saw this big lump of a man, massive, and he was just pulling up trees. And I was like, wow. And to think of that, in his next year, the following year, he made it into the South African under-21 squad. And the year after, he became a Springbok. It's ridiculous. He was working, and all you need is opportunity. And I think that also comes down to, you need to be able to prepare for that opportunity. And when you get that opportunity, you need to show that you're grafting, you're willing. There will be the adaptation period where you might not be used to the system or the structures. You might be far away from home, but you need to put in the work. But I think a powerful tool as well is social media. We see all these clips going viral. I saw this one prop, one of my arch nemesis schools, Grey College. He looked like a prop, and actually it was a sevens game. He had the number 1 on his back, and I was dreaming. I was like drooling, wow, I need this prop in my team. And then actually he was a center, but he was lightning fast and he was sidestepping. And that's a great way as well to put yourself out there. I'm not saying not for your ego, but that everybody's on social media. A lot of scouts are following, and clubs, and for all the young players out there to know clubs do have scouts. They come to those big games. They come to those big weekends where there are multiple games. And that's obviously an opportunity. It's about putting your best foot forward. But I think now to accelerate, Ben, time accelerates quickly when we're having these good chats. You find yourself in an academy system, all right? And it ties into the conversation we had before. Talent is not enough. Talent can get you in the room. But what are you going to do with when you get there? Now, what are you going to
100%.
do to stay there? So now you're in the academy system. Now we've seen the gap is starting to get a bit bigger for some of us players, because we also see now the salary cap has a massive impact in the professional teams, because they're reducing their numbers as well, because some of the academy players, it goes into the budget of the salary cap. But what do you reckon young rugby players that find themselves in the academy environment should be doing?
You want to be like a sponge, don't you? You want to learn as much as possible. But I always say to people, you need to learn, but you need to have that support system around you that you don't keep moving and, don't get blown by the waves. If so you don't hear something and then change your opinion of this, and then you do something different for 2 weeks and then you hear another opinion. It's really important that you get some close people that you trust who are close to you, and you have an understanding of who you are, what you're good at, and you focus and you keep trying to get better week by week. And that's the process that you're going to focus on. Not, this guy said this and now I'm going to do this a bit, and then this guy said this. So you really need to be firm in your mind, and that's open-minded to keep learning, but just keep your head down, keep working on your processes. It's getting better every day.
Yeah, I agree. I think, and also the key thing with rugby players, and I think the new generation, Ben, is a bit difficult. It's different. We see players that, have some off-field issues as well. Either they had a tough upbringing, or, they come from a broken home. Let's be honest, it was not always easy, and you need to take that in account. But as a player, you need to put your best foot forward. You need to, I always tell players, 5 minutes too early is 10 minutes too late. The Lombardi rule. So they need to make sure that they're always there on time, and always giving good pictures and showing the best version of themselves. Because players, sometimes you're young, you can get caught up. For example, you move to another town and you get caught up in the student lifestyle and you go to the parties. You need to understand, and it ties into what Anthony Watson said the other day.
I was about to say that.
Needs to remain.
Are you about to say the main thing? The main thing. Yeah.
So that's don't forget why you're there. And I have seen firsthand where players in the academy setup have missed opportunities due to extracurricular activities. So you need to be focused. And that's why I was zoomed there. Even back in the day when I was in Bloemfontein, being in a predominantly so-called white hostel, it wasn't easy, but I made great friends there. But I knew I was there. I had this clear vision of what I wanted to achieve. So you need to make sure that you're getting enough sleeping. You need to make sure that your nutrition is on point. And I know sometimes it's not easy. Some players, I've seen it, some players don't have the means to buy quality food or decent food, or some of them don't even eat the evening because they don't have the means for that. So you need to reach out to someone. Don't be afraid to say, listen, I need help. That's very important.
And something that's come up a couple of times with a couple of the interviews that we've done with people that are going to, Anthony, I think, and a couple of others, that they've said, and it's such a great point, you need to be ready to go. You don't know when the opportunity is going to come along, but you need to be ready to take it. This guy's dropped out, and this guy wasn't available. I remember who it was now, actually. There's been a couple, but this guy, he wasn't available suddenly on the wing at the weekend. And I got an opportunity and I scored 4 tries. And then before you knew it, I did it the next week. I scored 3, and then they offered me a contract. There's guys like that. So you got to be ready to roll. But the other thing I was going to say before is, say 3 scouts see you and they don't like you. It's not the end of the world. It's like you've got to persevere. Know yourself. Be true to yourself. Keep focusing on what you can control. Keep working hard. Keep applying yourself. Keep contributing positively to the environment. Keep doing what you're doing. Seek good advice. Listen. Maybe I could get better at this. Maybe that's why I didn't get. But don't be disheartened when the first guy doesn't rate you, maybe, or didn't see you, because you don't know what they're looking for. They might not even be looking for someone in your position. So don't let that knock you. Just keep on your track.
Yeah, I think that's great. Yeah, I think, we've been speaking to so many people lately.
Yeah.
Recently, I'm not going to mention his name, but I've been speaking to someone that has achieved some great things on the rugby field, but also off the field as well. And don't want to give too much away because that's a future guest. It's a rugby player. He told me his story. Didn't go to a private school. He didn't follow the classic route. He had a tough upbringing, and he didn't get drafted into academy system. So what did he do? He sent out his CV to everyone, to all the clubs in England. He contacted coaches. He found a way to get the email address, the numbers. He put himself out there. And some rugby players said, I'm not going to go that route. I've got my pride. Hey, if you want the opportunity or not, you do what is necessary.
Yeah.
Right.
And he was ready to roll.
Yeah, and sometimes I take my hats off to, sometimes I get DMs from social media, whether it's on Instagram or LinkedIn. Players will send me a DM, hey, coach, do you think there's opportunity for me at the club? And I was like, dude, I'm not a recruitment officer. You know what? I just respect that he actually had that courage to contact me. And then I'll actually have a look at it. And I'll often listen, mate, I would advise you speak to your agent. I can't promise you I don't get involved in those type of things. But then this player as well, later in his career, having that mindset, he was without the club. He's played professionally. He played for years at a specific club. And then he had no job. He was clubless. All right. And we know how tough it is in the UK, in the English Premiership, with some of the clubs that went down, etc. And he just contacted the coach of this Premiership team, and he played with them for 2 months without getting paid. Without getting paid. Can you imagine that? No pay at all, pitching up to training. He was playing in at the back end of that in that season. He won the Heineken Cup back then. It's ridiculous. So it comes down with always, you got to prepare for that opportunity.
Yeah.
You gotta work. You need to be ready, because when an opportunity presents itself, you need to take it. You need to take it.
Yeah. And what you were going to just on that one, it reminded me, if you don't back yourself, how can you expect other people to back you?
Yeah.
So you got to back yourself. And I like that. And that's a great example of it.
Okay, right, Ben. So if we can summarize everything a bit, and we're speaking maybe now to young players. A lot of the young players, they're out of school. They might be in an academy system. And we notice that that gap is getting bigger and bigger. There's a massive gap to bridge. What is the advice that you can give those younger players if they want to go to that next step to play at a professional level? Let's say what is the Premiership, the URC, Champions Cup, Top 14, Super Rugby. What advice would you? What are the common traits that they need to have which will give them the best possible opportunity to be called up?
Work out your strengths. We talk about it a lot, but work out your strengths, because if you know what is going to give you an edge or get you seen, or what's going to make you stand out, your point of difference, work that out. So like you said, if you're this jackal guru, you make 4 turnovers a game, you're going to be gold to a team. So if you can turn that, and make that your strength, make that your super strength, and then channel all your energy into being amazing, world class at that. Because if you're world class at that, then there's and that's your S&C, leaving no stone unturned, analyzing the best at doing that, putting your footage together, getting seen, getting it out there, but working every day to be better at that, and then get better, and then and just be those things like nail your nutrition, nail your S&C, nail everything like that, and make keep being coachable. And then some stuff, you'll build momentum, stuff will happen. At the very least, you'll become a much, much better player that your players around you will value. You'll learn from the process, and I'm sure doors will open.
So I'm going to steal something from you, Ben, which I've learned while we've been doing this podcast. One of the key things is skill acquisition. All right. You need to be obsessed with acquiring certain basic skills. And as we've seen the modern day game, one of the most undervalued skill set is the ability to pass with precision. The different type of passing behind the back. We've seen so many balls going. The type of rugby teams are trying to play, whether you're forward or the back. It would be really a pity if you're a strong center and you can run over walls and break down those walls, but you can't even pass. That could hold you back. So you got to work on your basic fundamental skills, that run and catch pass skill set. Your tackling technique, you need to have a decent standard of tackling technique. But I think most important, where I want to give advice to our viewers and to our listeners, is that you need to become a student of the game. My generation was different. We were obsessed with rugby. We would watch every single game of rugby which was on the telly. That's what we used to do. I used to go on my own to rugby games. My dad used to drop me at Newlands to watch that team who shall not be named. But today, players are spending time on their phones. They are playing Brostar. I even have sometimes to inspire some of my players. I put up I use ChatGPT and I take one of their images and I create their own unique Brostar character. All right, and I said, guys, you need to do it in a Brostar come out. I haven't even played it. I tried to play it once. I thought it's ridiculous. But players are spending so much time on their phones. So instead of spending time on your phone, watch your training if it's been filmed. Watch your game if it's been filmed. Ask for feedback from your coaches. Be conscious. Be present in the moment. Be present in those meetings. Be present at training. Learn as much as possible.
And on that one, a big one, when I ask players, I say, oh, well, who do you aspire to be like? Or who do you think is good in your position? And unfortunately, several times there's a huge pause. Whereas I would have, someone asked me that, I would go Michael Jones in New Zealand. I wanted to be like Michael Jones. So I've watched all his games. I've watched this. I know what he does. I know how he does that. I know how he spins here. I know how he puts his feet on the tackle. I know, and when you study it, it's not just your own stuff. Find players who are better than you and watch what they do and watch how they do it.
Yeah.
And then try and find out how they train it, ask around. So be curious,
Funny thing, I've identified a few youngsters in our club, in the front row who I think can potentially become really good at the later stage. They're still young. They're about 17 years old. And we're doing some skill work on a weekly basis with them and really teaching them the integral parts of the scrum. And then I asked them, did you guys watch the game this week in the first team's game? It's like, no. It's like, why didn't you watch it? We don't have Canal Plus, so Canal Plus is the provider, with the broadcast provider watching. It's like we can't watch it. So then I realized, okay, on the one side I felt bad. Yeah, I'm asking him to watch the game, but they don't have access to it because it costs money to watch that game. But if you really want to learn, you'll find a way. You'll get a mate said, mate, do you have Canal Plus? Do you got, I don't even what rugby's being on, what's the channel in the UK where all the Premiership games are on the Champions Cup?
TNT at the moment, or
TNT or whatever.
It's across a few,
If you want to learn, you'll find a way. You'll find someone that has it. Screen record it with your phone so you can have those clips. For example, you need to learn the game. You need to watch rugby. Watch highlight reels. It's freely available on YouTube. Sometimes you will get to the full game. So yeah, I think to sum it up, you need to be a student of the game. That's very important.
Great.
Ben, brother, before we sign out, anything else you would like to add on? All right, because otherwise we're going to go on for another hour. We're still not keeping to our 20-minute limit or 15-minute limit.
Yeah, it's good. I think there's some stuff in there that, any questions, please come back to us, and anything specific you want help with. We love chatting about this, as you can tell, and, we want to help people. So, yeah, please let us know your thoughts and questions.
Yeah, for sure. And guys, send those questions. You can DM us on Instagram. In the show notes, you'll get access to our Instagram pages. Ben Pegna, Gurthro Steenkamp, and then also the podcast Instagram page, Lessons from the Game. And that's the great thing, Lessons from the Game. It's easy. You'll find it on YouTube. You'll find it on Spotify as well. On Spotify, you also have the ability to drop comments on this podcast, which is actually brilliant, which is quite cool. So please do leave your comments on Spotify. Let us know what you think. Ask your questions. And the same on YouTube. On the YouTube podcast, drop your messages. And if there's anything we can help with it, any particular topic that you would like us to speak about, please just reach out to us. It's that simple. Just ask. The worst we can say is no. We won't say no. We'll always find a way to speak to you guys. But guys, on that note, just like to ask you guys once again, the feedback we've been getting is amazing from our podcast. We're glad that you guys are enjoying it. But in order for us to grow the show and also to evolve as podcast hosts, we need you to like, subscribe, and follow. It's very important for us. Help us grow on all the different platforms on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and YouTube. Give us a follow, subscribe, stay up to date, help us grow the show as well. And as always, if you have any valuable guests that you might know, anyone that can contribute to our conversations in Lessons from the Game, please let us know. All right, I'm overtired, man. I need to get to bed. Early start to the morning. Ben, you as well. You need to take care of yourself, man. All right, I can see that energy's running low, man. It's running low.
Mate, it's been a long week already. I've lost track of days. Yeah, I'm looking forward to tomorrow, another day. Some good stuff.
Yeah, great stuff, great stuff. And just funny, just another question that I received today, about our podcast as well, Ben. I think just to remind everyone, guys, I have a job. This is not my job. So the main thing remains the main thing for me, always coaching first, my commitments towards my club. And when I have the spare hour or two in the week, this is when Ben and myself, we get on these unbelievable conversations. Okay, I'm rambling about. Time to us to cut this off. Thanks, guys. Thanks for joining us, for watching, listening, and we'll see you soon.
Cheers, guys.